Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gaming in the Keats. Long time no see. So, this is a friendly match I got with a friend of mine as I was taking a vacation back in the United States. Back with my friends Vamps in Maryland. And we decided to play a custom format for this game. So we were experimenting out with a format that potentially could be used for tournaments. It'd be, I think, it could, spice up some of these tournaments so we're not just doing the same old each time. Let's go ahead and check out what is happening. Okay, so when we break this new format down, basically before lists are even created, both myself and my opponent have the option to veto certain enchantments, lores, or units from my opponent's army list. And that means that they cannot use those enchantments, that lore, or that unit in the creation of their list. So we have 4 veto categories. We have the arcane compendium items that are available to be vetoed. We have an army book enchantment that is including demonic manifestations and dwarven runes that can also be vetoed. A magic lore, and then 1 army unit from any other category that's not characters or core. And each veto category can be chosen once. We kept the characters and the core untouched because right now we're just seeing how this might work with, say, vetoing a unit from Special, or from the Suffering, or from Swift Death, or the Menagerie, because I feel we felt that core and characters for the moment would be pretty potent if, say, for example, I could veto a vampire account. Now, granted, there are you don't have to play vampires with vampire accounts, but it'd just be, I think, or say if I vetoed, for example, skeletons or zombies. Again, you could do a whole ghoul army, but we're just testing these ideas out. And so the way that this format works is that each person gets to veto 4 different things, and we alternate which different category or unit or lore is vetoed. So let's jump over and see how this actually played out. So then basically this means that player A chooses a category, so to veto first, and then it goes to player B, and then it alternates back to player A, and then back to player B. And so there's no set order. So for example, player A could veto an enchantment first, and then player B, for their first veto, could veto a unit first. So it's creates this sort of back and forth kind of psychological warfare, if you will, between you and your opponent, this chess game, to see, okay, what might they be trying to stop? What units might the opponent be trying to hinder myself, or what I would like to hinder my opponent? So yeah, we'll jump over now to what my opponent and myself vetoed for our lists. Okay, so I got to choose the first veto, so I vetoed Wraiths, because if y'all haven't been paying attention to the new vampire hotness, Wraiths and the double move are really popular right now, and they're great for going against Dread Elves. I mean, we're squishy, and we just get eaten to shreds by that thing. So I vetoed Wraiths, and then my opponent vetoes Alchemy. So, I'm thinking, okay, so he's taking away my Exarch then, or he's taking away a very common build of mine that I like to use with the Exarch. So I chose Occultism for my second veto, because again, occultism is just not fun for squishy elves. Then my opponent vetoes the Executioner's icon, so now basically, like this, I'm gonna have to pick a different banner for the spears. And then here's where I think I actually made my first mistake. I vetoed the Necromantic Staff to try and mitigate some of that healing coming through. However, if I go back to this, I really think I should have just vetoed the Unholy Tome to prevent any sort of double move shenanigans at all. And yes, you will see how it comes up in the game. My opponent then vetoes Shieldbreaker. I ban Cleansing Light because I know my opponent's lists, he's been loving zombie dragons with Cleansing Light and a halberd or great weapon, so I'm not feeling Cleansing Light. And then my opponent decides to veto the Kraken as his final choice. And with that being said, this is the list I decided to try out with all the vetoes in place. So I still have a Beastmaster on a dragon, trying out the Great Weapon with a Crippling Frost. I haven't used that yet, and I want to make sure that the dragon can hit better, quite honestly. And also giving him a second breath weapon, just because having 2 breath weapons on that model is great. Then I'm trying out a Manticore Outcast, Wizard Master of Evocation with 4-up, 4-up, and MR2. I just wanted to use my Manticore model, and that was it. So, and do something different. Why not? It's not an optimal choice, especially with Evocation on the Manticore. I think Cosmology is better because you can heal those models. But I figured I really wanted some sniping with Evocation to deal with my opponent's single models. Then I have a BSB with 2 Legion standards instead of 2 Aether icons. And now we have a big unit of 30 Beast Breakers. This is controversial, a controversial choice here, because they're not spears. Spears are objectively way better, but I figured I have an idea with this unit, and you'll see later in the list if you haven't caught it on already. And then we go with the auxiliaries, 2 units of Shadow Riders, then we have the big unit of Judicators with the Flaming Standard because I'm expecting my opponent to put down Ghasts since he banned Alchemy. So yeah, Judicators definitely. And then I'm trying out some Dread Knights. Maybe I'm trying to, I wanted to see if I can benefit from the Beastbreaker ability, get those Dread Knights into combat really, really quickly. I know, again, it's not an optimal choice here just because, my opponent has access to so many different ways of dealing with Dread Knights. But I missed my models and wanted to put them on the table. And now I'm trying a Divine Altar. And so the Divine Altar is going to go into the Beastbreaker unit. And so when you do that, you end up having this massive anvil in your center that can't be stomped. It's pretty awesome. Especially knowing my opponent's probably going to be playing a Shrieking Horror, probably going to be playing a Zombie Dragon, maybe a Monstrous Revenant. We'll see. So I just wanted to see if I could just generate as much combat resolution as possible in this unit that can't be stomped and has parry. So yeah, I think we'll see how it goes. Hence the 2 Legion standards also on the BSB. So for my opponent's list, he's no Zombie Dragon, which is probably good. But he still has the Unholy Tome. He has just a regular Wizard Master of Evo with Arcane Knowledge, so it means he has a greater reach for doing the movement spell. And let's see. And then he's got a Courtier on a Revenant. This guy's pretty beefy, especially with Shamanism. So he can be really hard to take down, I found. I like this build a lot. He's a BSB, which is also interesting. He has 2 Banshees, so gross. Not fun for me, at least. And Necro of Evo, he has 35 ghouls, 2 units of skeletons with Legion standards, chaff, so direwolves and bat swarms, and then he has 2 Courts of the Damned. So both of those courts are going to go in those skeletons, and then it kind of hit me like, now with those debuffs, I'm becoming super dependent on my divination Know Thy Enemy spell, and I can't let those ghouls charge me if the court is within 6 of the Judicators, because then the ghouls will just eat me before I get to attack, which is actually surprisingly good against Judicators. So he's also got 4 Vampire Knights with the Flaming Standard. I think my opponent was anticipating a Hydra, and then naturally my opponent brought a Shrieking Horror. So that is the list. Going into the pregame setup, we're doing marching columns on map B3, and the secondary is King of the Hill. So I got to choose, let's see. I think my opponent got to choose sides. So my opponent chose this side here with the hill, the ruins, and the forest, and then I got to drop first. And I chose, I chose this as my hill to go for, and my opponent chose this hill as their hill to go for. So I'm already thinking I've made a mistake in choosing this hill because I actually only have 3 scoring units. And so I have a big disadvantage already now that I'm thinking about this. So with Magic, I chose, rerolls to hit, rerolls to wound, so Spectral Blade, and then both the snipes, as well as Know Thy Enemy because I had to, and then I chose Fate's Judgment because I definitely want to be able to try and pick off those Banshees or put wounds on those on that Shrieking Horror. My opponent has basically 3 times Hereditary, has picked Dance Macabre naturally, so he has 2 times Dance Macabre, 1 as a bound and 1 as the regular spell, and then he has Whispers of the Veil, Hasten the Hour, and Touch of the Reaper, and then he also has Awaken the Beasts as well in the Courtier of Shamanism. So, okay, pregame thoughts. My priorities are definitely the Wraiths and the Shrieking Horror, and so I'm going to try and just use my own damage spells to get to them. I have to be super, super careful of how I move so that they can't just get behind me and start sweeping attack over me and then screaming at me. And then, the big question I have is what to prioritize in terms of spells. Do I stop the snipes on my characters or on the knights, most likely? Or do I stop the movement spells? And then, I think it's tough. It's a tough one. I think ultimately, when I look back at this, you kind of have to prioritize the movement spells because he's getting more value out of his screaming and his shrieking versus if he still has to roll for those snipe spells. And they're not always either going to be cast or going to wound you, so I think trying to stop movement spells is probably the better option. Ironic. So I wrote, pushing infantry and trying to cover the back line with the dragon and the manticore. We'll see how that goes. And then trying to, be conscious of the Courts of the Damned debuffs, and trying to not let the ghouls charge and making sure I'm the one who's at least charging so I get the magic phase for Know Thy Enemy. To be honest, I don't think this is a good matchup for me. I think my opponent has quite a bit of tools to deal with my elite units. And I would call it unstable to an orange. So I'm looking at between a 5 to 7, 5 to 8. That would be nice. And so we'll see how it goes. Vanguards. So my opponent chooses not to Vanguard. I think he reshuffles his dire wolves a little bit, and then as you can see, my 2 Vanguards are here with the 2 units of Shadow Riders. So from right to left, speaking of which, we have Shadow Riders, my Knights, auxiliaries. We have the Manticore right behind. We have my big unit of Beast Breakers with the Altar and the BSB. We have the Judicators. We have my Dragon right here. And then, yeah, the other unit of Shadow Riders. You'll notice it's 28 Judicators, and I technically right now have too many models. I think now that's like 32 right there just to fill out the unit footprint, but we correct that later on in the game. And then you can see my scouting, oh my goodness, Black Cloaks. For my opponent's side, left to right, we got his unit of Bat Swarms with the 2 Banshees in there, which I thought was pretty cheeky. And then he's got 1 unit of Skeletons with a Court and his Vampire and a Necro. His Vampire is actually in the 2nd rank, which comes up later in terms of how important that is. His Shrieking Horror, his Ghouls, his other unit of Skeletons with a Court, his unit of Dogs, his Revenant, and 4 Vampire Knights. And remember, this is an impassable, not a Ruins. So this right here is the Ruins. So, turn 1. Yeah, I push up, but I left the Knights back because I was really worried about the Banshees coming over and just picking them off and screaming. So I left them back, and if he does want to come over here at some point, he's going to get a charge from the Manticore, which has magical attacks, and or he could probably try and go for the Manticore, to be honest. I probably should have kept the Manticore actually back here to cover this. So I think this was... I was trying to be aggressive with the Manticore, but honestly, I don't think that's the right play. And then, yeah, I push up as well with the Beast Breakers in the center, so trying to protect my hill and thinking at some point I'm going to try and have to sweep over with the Judicators. But already, you know, I'm looking at this and I have the Judicators with the Flaming Standard on it and they're going into the water. Luckily, I'm not playing Ghasts, so it doesn't really come up, but I think in hindsight, this was also a deployment error on my part. And then the Dragon is covering any sort of zones where the monstrous Revenant can fly around the Judicators, so the Dragon is covering that area as well as the Shadow Riders and just getting ready to chaff if need be. So in the magic phase, I was able to get actually both snipes off on the Banshee unit and got this Banshee down to 1 wound remaining. My opponent wisely, he pre-measured, and he deployed the Shrieking Horror in a way where even if I marched up with the Beastbreaker unit, I couldn't get a Fate's Judgment in line with it. So I could only target this unit, which, you know, that was well played on my opponent. And then, yeah, I do push the Black Cloaks up. They do lose 1 from dangerous terrain, but I put 2 wounds on the Shrieking Horror, and so, and also trying to stall his advance at the same time. But yeah, we'll see how long they last. So my opponent's turn 1. He doesn't charge the Black Cloaks. Instead, he's just setting up to scream at them. And he moves this unit up. The unit with the Bat Swarms and 2 Banshees just moves them right in front of my auxiliaries. Unfortunately, with the auxiliary, I was hoping to maybe put that last wound on one of the Banshees by shooting, but due to the hard target and the ruins and moving and long range, it ended up becoming an impossible shot, so I couldn't do anything with the auxiliaries. And so he finds this nice little spot here where if he is able to get one of his movement spells off, he can indeed find this sweet spot right back here, which, yes, which is not good for me. In other news, yeah, and so he's just kind of creating this nice little semicircle here with his Revenant, staying out of charge range of the dragon, giving himself options with his knights. So, yeah. Okay, so the screaming phase. Yeah, with magic, my opponent... my opponent is able to heal back the Shrieking Horror. I dispelled the bound movement spell, and then my opponent forces through a Dance Macabre, and is able to get he's able to get the Banshees, both Banshees, in behind my auxiliaries, and this is the end result. He chose to scream at my auxiliaries, and so now there are 4 left, which luckily they do pass their panic, but in other news, the Shrieking Horror screamed off the Black Cloaks right there. So, it's a great turn 1 for my opponent, not a good turn 1 for me, especially now that I have Banshees in my backfield. No! Okay, so my turn 2. I'm basically saying, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to deal with my opponent's right side right now. I just really absolutely need to get rid of those Banshees. Like, I just need to do this. And so I move my dragon back to breath weapon them. I move the Manticore back to look at them so I can snipe them and get them in their front arc. And then I have the auxiliaries just turn around and we're going to shoot at them. So hopefully, I know it's overkill, but there's 4 wounds right now. There's 1 Banshee with 1 wound, and the other one has 3 wounds. Hopefully, all of that can deal with the Banshees. I move my Knights up in a way where they're still within 8 inches of the Beast Breakers to benefit, and so they have a nice charge into this unit here. We'll see if I actually want to do that. I don't know. And then, the Shadow Riders are getting ready to chaff if need be. And then I decide to pull my Shadow Riders back here, which I actually think is, again, a mistake. I think they needed to be sort of back in the position that they were to be able to countercharge any sort of chaff that comes this way. I think that would have been nice. But these guys are a bit out of position at the moment, so I guess I'm just trying to think like, hey, I'm just going to keep them safe for now and use them as chaff in later turns because I know I'm basically exposing my flank here with the Knights, although I think that's not a possible charge, but the Revenant can charge the front of the Judicators. And then naturally here, I charge the Judicators into Bat Swarms just to get rid of them. So, magic. I am able to kill one of the Banshees. Yes! I'm happy about that. Let's see. So I got Hasten the Hour off on the single Banshee. My opponent dispels Touch of the Reaper. And then with shooting, my auxiliaries don't do a single wound to this Banshee. So now it's up to the Dragon's Breath weapon. And boom! Oh my goodness. Oh, I rolled 9 hits on the Banshee. I rolled all wounds, and my opponent just couldn't make any saves, so I got lucky there. Oh my goodness. Oh. My heart definitely, it was definitely like a clenching moment in that, because just having one Banshee there just probably eats my auxiliary unit and then can scream at the Manticore, so yeah. Okay, so no more Banshees in my backfield. Yay. And, Bat Swarms die. And yes, so my opponent's turn 2. As expected, the Revenant comes over to threaten the flank of the Judicators and potentially the Beast Breakers. He I think he gave me double sixes for the dragon, or maybe he's just out of line of sight. I think he might just be out of line of sight with the dragon there. Now here he's trying to frenzy bait my judicators, so it's not a bad play there. And yeah, he's bringing the shrieking over here to try and deal with the knights, because I know what's about to happen next. Yeah, so when we go on to magic, that's what happens. 4 knights die. So essentially, I made a mistake. I basically did math in my head where I was thinking to myself, okay, like I can focus on the snipes now because they may do more damage, but then realizing, no, that was just the wrong play. So my opponent gets a movement spell off on the Shrieking Horror. He actually fails to cast Hasten the Hour, and Touch of the Reaper failed to wound. So, yeah, there you have it. Mistake there on my part, and I'm punished for it. He screams off 4 knights. So, and now I don't have a counter charge aside from the Manticore onto the Shrieking Horror, which is not good. That does not look good for me at the moment. Those knights are they need to be doing something, otherwise they're just going to die. So they do something. I charge. I don't think this is a good idea, but I figured, well, they're going to die anyway, so I might as well at least try and, charge them into his general's unit. I might be able to take down that Court of the Damned and get that Necromancer as well. So that takes away a heal and takes away one of those debuffs. And I'm just hoping, and I noticed that, well, the vampire's in the back rank. So if I can get the Court of the Damned, well, but yeah, you'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm hoping, well, the vampire at least only has 1 attack at the moment on my knights, so the mites might stick around for a bit. In other news, I'm being super aggressive with my Beastbreaker unit. Yeah, don't know why. I'm trying to bait a charge from the Shrieking Horror and the Revenant, but then I'm also realizing, no, but this is also giving his ghouls a chance to charge. Which, nope, that's, I didn't think that one through, to be honest. Luckily the Judicators passed their frenzy check and they turned to face, so front arcs from the ghouls, the dogs, the revenants, the knights, everything is in the front arc. I'm bringing my Shadow Riders over here to try and cause some march checks, and getting the Manticore over to try and snipe this Revenant. Now I need to try and snipe the Revenant. And the Dragon is now preparing to countercharge anything that comes into the Beastbreakers or the Judicators. And, my auxiliaries are just chilling on top of the hill because they got nothing better to do. They're just trying to save their points at the moment. So in terms of magic, my opponent stops Know Thy Enemy on the Beastbreakers, and I'm able to get 3 wounds off with, I think I was able to get both Touch of the Reaper and Hasten the Hour on this Revenant, and so I got 3 wounds off on the Revenant, so that's looking really good. I'm happy about that. Yes, he can heal it, but hey, that's 3 heals he now needs to dedicate into the Revenant. And close combat, right. So what happened was I charge in, I don't take any DTs, and I'm able to put 4 wounds on the Court of the Damned. I was so close to killing it. I was able to, with the raptor attacks, I was able to actually snipe the necromancer. However, because of that, the vampire now moves up and is now touching my rank and file. So, naturally, the vampire will swing with all of its attacks. And you combine that with the Core of the Damned, and so now I only have my champion remaining. And we stick. We stick there. I think it was actually a push, or maybe I lost by 1 and was in reroll range, or I think it was close to being a push. So yeah, that champion knight who wants to be somebody is not long for this world. So turn 3, check this out. The ghouls fail a charge. They needed a 6. Oh, and my opponent charges in with the Shrieking Horror and with the Revenant into the flanks. Now, normally you're thinking like, ooh, that's not good, right? But these are Beast Breakers. They don't get stopped. So, yeah, I'm going to challenge him out with a champion. That's fine. And the Shrieking Horror, yeah, we'll get some screams onto the Beast Breakers. Like, that will be, at max 6. But I have static 7, so worst case scenario, it's going to be a push for me. I have static 7, he'll have a charge and let's see, 7. So you have a charge, flank, and then we'll assume he does max overkill. 4, so I actually win. Almost. Yeah, I think so. I think I even win this. Or I think it might be a push. One of the two. Either way. His knights are coming up to threaten the Judicators. The Judicators are now chaffed by the dogs. And now his skeletons move up so that, depending on what happens here, if I choose to charge the ghouls, they're just going to munch through a whole bunch of Beast Breakers. And then I'll probably just get countercharged by the other 2 units. So, yeah. But I'm actually feeling pretty confident about this, to be honest. I'm thinking like, I think my opponent just gave me these 2 models. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, in terms of magic, I think my opponent is basically able to heal the Core of the Damned, I think, on 1, and then he's also able to heal a wound on the Revenant, so the Revenant now has 2 wounds. He is able to get Awaken the Beast on the Courtier, which is pretty important because now that means he can't be wounded on better than a 5. And I think, so obviously the knight dies. He tried. But here the Shrieking Horror does, I think the Shrieking Horror only kills 3. I think I put a wound or 2 on him because I have +1 to wound. The Revenant does get his max overkill, so 4, 5, 6, 7, charge, flank is 8, 9, and then he has a BSB is 10, and so I have 5 ranks minus 5. So yeah, because I have 2 Legion standards, so 1, 2, 3, so 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I think I do 8, 9. Yeah, I do 2 wounds to the Shrieking Horror, or I did 1 wound to the Shrieking Horror, so I lose by 1 because he has a BSB, and then I make my Steadfast break check. So yeah, I'm pretty happy there because now I have some countercharge options with the dragon. And let's go! The dragon charges in. Yeah. I want to get this Revenant down, and I figure if I can kill the Revenant, I have so much static that the Shrieking Horror is just going to pop. I charge the dogs. I chaff his knights over here. Now, here is another chaffing mistake that I'm making. Okay, so check this out. The Shadow Riders are basically in this area right here. And they had the 18-inch movement to at least be able to come through and chaff both the ghouls and this court unit. However, it would mean I'd have to take 2 sets of DTs. And I didn't want to risk a panic, so I decided simply to chaff the 1 unit here without using their march movement. Yeah, that was not good. I think I should have just tried to risk it because it's super critical that this unit is chaffing these 2 units. It is absolutely imperative. And I chose not to do that. So I would have been in BSB range. And I mean, yeah, things could have gone wrong and I'd only have like maybe 1 or 2 models left, but I think I only needed 1 model to get both of these units chaffed. So, nah, not a smart play here. Oh well. Okay, so in Magic, I do get Ancestral Adolf on the dragon. I do get Know Thy Enemy on the Beast Breakers. And my opponent dispels Spectral Blades. And with everything said and done, I get the 4 wounds on the Revenant from the dragon. She did it! Ah, yay! I'm happy about that. So the dragon took down the BSB. Even with wounding on 5s, it was really the Ancestral Aid that did it. So I'm happy about that. It did take both the Beastmaster and the dragon. And I think, did I pop my second breath weapon just to try it? No, I don't think I did. So, yeah, that... Oh, I do take a wounded return on the dragon, though, from the Revenant. So that's, yeah, it's not ideal. But I'm super happy about that. And now, because of all the wounds I do, and the static combat res, the Shrieking Horde pops. So I'm pretty happy, not going to lie. However, now I have the ghouls and a big bus of skeletons with the Court of the Damned coming into my Beastbreaker unit. And as much of an anvil as that unit can be, I think this is probably a perfect setup now because his ghouls are going to do a lot of damage to me. He's going to get his impact hits. And yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that the Altar and the BSB with the Halberd with Pride of Gardekos can do some wounds back to maybe mitigate what's done to me, but this is not good. And he chooses not to charge the chaff here. Reason being is because he wants to snipe my dragon. And then he charges right here. You can see he charges his Vampire Knights. And I think, smart play here. I think he's probably just going to either reform. I think he can probably reform out of line of sight of the Adjudicators, or maybe he just overruns depending on what the situation is. So yeah, he is able to get 1 more snipe on the dragon, which sucks. And close combat. This is the result. He does 4, 8, 12, 13, 14 wounds to the Beast Breakers. I do a number back. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 back. But, I mean, he rolled max impact hits. Ugh. And he was able to actually grow back some skeletons just to tip the scale to make sure he breaks my steadfast. So yeah, this is going to be, so I think I did have, a minimized discipline here with a reroll. I think I needed a 4 to stick, and he breaks me. And he overruns into the dragon. The ghouls overrun as well to catch me. And, yeah. However, this does barely gives me a flank with the Adjudicators into his skeletons with the way that he has that. Yeah, okay. Well, so the Beastbreaker unit got caught and run down by the ghouls. And, yeah, he overran into my dragon. And so, well, now I just got a countercharge. And let's see what happens. And that's what you see. So I countercharge with the Judicators. Now I do the correction. I actually think I lose 4 to DTs as well. But worth it. And so, I mean, I just go to town on this unit. Everything's said and done. Basically, yeah, I think I also try and put all my attacks onto... I figured I had enough to crumble the unit completely, so I do put most of my attacks onto the Court of the Damned, so I think it has 2 wounds left. But I do also pop my breath weapon here as well. So, yeah, everything's said and done. The unit crumbles. So I'm happy about that. However, unfortunately, because my dragon was charged, it's blocking the Adjudicators to getting into the flank of the ghouls. So, bummer. And now, this is my opponent's turn 5. So, as you can see, my dragon took another wound from an impact hit. Instead of charging the chaff here, my opponent chooses to reform. And yeah, and now he's basically going to break through and get to my King of the Hill. And I'm starting to realize at this point that, I have only a turn 6 coming up, and I can't physically reach my opponent's King of the Hill. So, crap. Not good. So with magic, yeah, my opponent's able to get one more snipe off onto the dragon. So the dragon now only has 1 wound remaining. That's not looking good. His knights are basically out of the arc of the Judicators, and, you know, he's just, yeah, his knights don't need to worry about anything at this point. So the dragon, yeah, only has 1 wound left. So with that being said, I'm going to go for it. Oh, failed to mention, I failed to mention that my opponent, I think I stopped one of the movement spells, but my opponent was able to get a second movement spell off and move the ghouls onto the hill. So, yeah, so my opponent gets a snipe and a movement, you know, with Dance Macabre off and just gets them onto the objective. So in my turn, I charge the dragon in. I figured I'm going to get sniped anyway. I could try and... I can't really move back because the knights are covering that charge. Or the knights are essentially zoning where the dragon can go. And then he would be able to, with arcane knowledge, be able to snipe the dragon anyway. So I figured at this point, well, I'm just going to charge in and give myself an opportunity. Why not? He's going to challenge me out his turn anyway, but I know his general has a great weapon and is swinging last, even with the court debuffs. So, yeah, I might as well try. And with magic, I am able to get Spectral Blades and Ancestral Aid off, and with that, easily kill the unit champion. So, on my opponent's turn, we're going to go over my opponent's turn because there's not much really left to talk about. He already has the objective. So, I stop Spectral Blades on the unit, and my opponent gets off Whispers of the Veil on the dragon. So now I'm Resilience 5. And my opponent does something that I was not anticipating. He refuses the challenge. He refuses the challenge with his vampire count. And then it just occurred to me, oh no, he has a Court of the Damned with 1 wound left on it. That can put that's going before my Beastmaster and before my dragon, and hitting me on 3s, wounding me on 4s now. Oh, and I have 1 wound left. So, my opponent rolls his dice. He gets 2 wounds through, and I need to make 2 saves of a 5-up with the AP2 that he has. And no! I rolled 1 5 and 1 3 or something. I saved one but failed the other. And by the way, for those of you who have been paying attention to my list, I had already used the Lucky Charm at this point. This would have been the perfect time to use the Lucky Charm. And I used it earlier thinking that my dragon was probably dead at some point from all the sniping. But no, this would have been the perfect chance to get that reroll in. Oh, nah. So there goes my general. There goes a whole bunch of points. There goes the objective. I did kill a fair amount of my opponents, but all that said and done, it is a victory for the Vampire Covenant. It is a 15-5 with the objective. So my opponent was able to get my general, my BSB, the Beast Bakers plus the altar, 1 unit of Dark Riders, Black Cloaks, and my Knights. In return, I got his Revenant BSB, his 2 Banshees, his Shrieking Horror, 1 unit of Skeletons, 1 Core of the Damned, and both of his chaff pieces. So 12-8 went to a 15-5. Very, very well played by my opponent. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think they're just... I felt like well, we'll go into the afterthoughts, but congratulations to Vamps in Maryland for this nice little friendly custom format game. So the afterthoughts. Okay, the macro side of things. I really loved this experimental custom format that you call it. That was really fun being able to veto units and trying to guess what my opponent might do if I veto one of his items or one of the magic lores. And also just being like, I don't want to see occultism across the table. I don't want to see race across the table. It felt good. It felt very good. Having like the double Dance Macabre and Snipes I think that's just really tough. And to be fair, like this isn't the deadliest of magic phases you can get from the Vampire Covenants, but it's still hard to It's hard to stop. I think my opponent really regretted not vetoing the Flaming Banner from the Judicators, which actually didn't come up at all in this game, but once he realized he didn't veto the Flaming Banner, he decided to not take guests, so which is fair play. I think choosing to go first was also a mistake on my part. I think I really just should have chosen to go second, and also I think I could have just chosen the same King of the Hill as my opponent and just say, like, I'm going to defend this hill. You got to come get it because you have more scoring units than me. You have the double movement to get around me, but if I make this sort of, if I make this convex with my deployment and just, again, let the Dragon and the Manticore kind of cover that backfield, I think I can actually tie the objective, if not win it. But it just depends on what I have left versus what my opponent has left. So I think the bigger strategy just needed to be different instead of trying to push. Micro stuff, I mean, I'm still having a hard time chaffing at the right moment and chaffing the right units and you just need to get more plays in for getting practiced and getting your chaff ready to be activated and knowing when to use it, when to reserve it. So I just need more practice. And I think I made a mistake with choosing to kill the Necro in the first round of combat with the knights, it would have absolutely kept my vampire alive, for sure. Because I didn't attack the champion, so he couldn't take away the champion from the first rank, so the vampire couldn't move up. So, had that had happened, yeah, I think my knights could have stuck around a little bit longer. And still locking in his vampire there, so that perhaps that gives me an opportunity with the dragon to come in later, or the beast breakers. Well, you know. And then, yeah, just my movement with the knights. I was able to allow the banshees into my backfield. Oh well. It's my first time playing against that whole double Dance Macabre or Dance Macabre Ravenwing thing. So it's just something to, now that I've learned, okay, like I feel like I can do that better. So some of my other thoughts here is that the Beast Breakers with an altar in it become a really interesting anvil, in my opinion. Like I know a lot of people don't like Beast Breakers, but having a unit with parry that can't be stopped, and then you generate combat res through your characters. And then I was thinking Legion standards, like, hey, why not? I got that idea from another player, Ekir Soulheart. I saw he used an alternate Beastbreaker unit in a small YouTube tournament, or a small tournament that he did, and I figured, well, why not try it in a 4,500 point game? Let's see. So I'm still happy. I still want to try that unit out. Maybe not with the altar, maybe with 2 characters or something, but yeah, we'll see. Knights. I miss Knights so much. I miss the Resilience 4. But there's just so many things that can deal with them now. So, and, you know, I feel like they just compete for other slots in your list. At this rate, maybe it just makes more sense to have Gorgons, because at least they get a 5 of Aegis against the Scream, and, you know, you do your scoring from your core, and it's just, you know, they do, on paper, they do a great damage output for sure when they charge. And now with their advance, you know, the advance increase from the Beast Breakers is great, but, so at least they can get into combat, but still, they just get picked off really easily, I found. And then, yeah, I think with this list, Cosmo, I think, was just better. I could have been healing the dragon, like, you know, those little things. I could have been, I still would have a snipe to deal with some of those characters, as well as Ice and Fire, so, and Truth and Time would have been nice. Or I still would have had options for a double agility debuff or buff. So, yeah, I think Cosmo would have just been better. All right, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you're feeling spicy, then please like and subscribe. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Ciao.